We are week 2 Empire League podcast. We're with Glenn, and we actually have a good guest this week when we have Luke
And Luke's mustache.
and Luke's mustache.
Yeah, Luke's mustache deserves its own invitation for sure, its own introduction. Welcome to the podcast, Luke. We're excited to have you on. Way more excited than we were to have Hags.
I believe it. You know, I was just sitting over here thinking about who in this league really resembles to me a Jerry Jones type of guy. You know, just goes out there, blows real hard, brings in stud players like Dez Bryant, parties all the time. You know, we even saw a taste of that, I think, with Hags on the air. And I got to say, it's Hags to me. You know, that's a true 5-11 spirit there, cutting the podcast short. Going out to drink in an Uber, God knows where. Guys probably came home an hour later. Terrible time, $100 bill. Hangover in the morning anyways. Jerry Jones. Thanks for coming on last week, Hags. Really entertaining.
Doesn't make the playoffs. 4-12. I guess he did. What was his record last year? I forget. Pretty close to the Cowboys, though.
Yeah, maybe a little better than we'd like, but it's definitely going down this year.
Well, he pulled out a lucky win this week, I think. I mean, Dez dropped the ball literally for me in the end zone.
Literally.
Apparently, he can't catch the ball anymore. That sucked.
That sucks.
That sucks. But other than that, I think Ryan snuck out a win. Larry Fitzgerald went up for 2 TDs and something like 80 yards. Even when AP got stuffed and Brandon Marshall barely had any touches, but tough loss. It was a tough loss to Ryan. I had a tough few weeks ahead of me.
Yeah, Ryan really snuck out a lucky win there with Keenan Allen going down and Dez Bryant having a tough week. It was a weird week overall for the Stars. AP and Brandon Marshall and Dez Bryant were just no good in this game at all.
I mean, I wasn't impressed with the Cowboys really at all. I mean, you come out and you make your rookie quarterback have 45 attempts, and Zeke only got, 50 yards and a lucky touchdown?
Yeah. I mean, that was it. It was pretty miserable for the Cowboys overall.
Yeah. And then
so
you had,
he's got to get better though. I mean, I expect AP to have a bounce back week, and Brandon Marshall especially to have a bounce back week. So.
I bet.
It was just a tough week. You should have capitalized on that, and you couldn't. But I suppose Hags deserves a little good fortune after
last season.
I was going to say after last season, but not after that podcast. So
not after that podcast.
Yeah, not after that podcast. Screw that, man.
After that podcast.
I was rooting for you 100%. Luke, any thoughts on the game? The matchup last week between Jared and Hags?
You know, honestly, it disappointed. I got to say, both of them came in real softer than expected. And in the end, you know, it was a close matchup, but you know, what's something going to say when really the only reason those guys got points is Spencer Ware dropped 30 and Larry Fitzgerald decided to go nuts. Like,
yeah.
What is that?
How do you feel about Jamal Charles probably not starting again this week? How do you feel about that ACL?
I'm pretty okay with it.
Yeah.
It's not phasing me, you know, when you got guys like Nat Forte stepping up, looking like he's 22 years old, it really doesn't matter. You know, you got a question times like this why I got like, what is it, 40 points or something to pick up Bilal Powell?
Yeah. We'll see. I thought he was gonna do better than he did. He got a couple touches, but not as many as I was hoping he would.
You know, Bilal Powell looked good with his touches. Matt Forte owned the market share. I mean, he was getting all the touches, so the few that Powell got, he looked good in. It just didn't matter. He wasn't getting any touches.
Not as much as I had hoped he would.
Not worried about Jamal Charles. I think we'll come back to that later. Let's move on from this matchup. Overall, pretty disappointing by both teams here, and
Wasn't good.
yeah, and we'll move on. So the next matchup, let's get right into the good stuff. Let's get into Supreme Leader Goodell versus Super Worms. That one was full of fantasy goodness. It came down to the wire, and wow, what a
And then
game
Todd
by
Gurley got
D'Angelo
stuffed.
Williams.
Yeah, I mean, he went off. He had what, 2 TDs and however many yards. And then Jeremy, I think he's going to have this issue all season where he doesn't know what wide receivers to start. I mean, he had fucking Willie Snead go off. Put up more points than Julio Jones. But,
Yeah, Willie Snead went bonkers. I don't think Jeremy's ever gonna start him all year. Although I bet there's gonna be times where he wishes he did, just like tonight, because that Saints offense is so potent. But I think the big story here is Todd Gurley. And if I was Jeremy, I would be real worried about Todd Gurley in 2015 because the Rams are so bad. They're so bad. I thought they would stomp the 49ers, and they got manhandled by another bad team. Blaine Gabbert, Gurley couldn't get anything going. I mean, how can you expect anything out of Todd Gurley when the team plays like that? I think he's in for some trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that you have Case Keenum as your quarterback, so they can just stuff the boxes. I know you're going to run 3 downs and then punt.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just lost Luke. So if you want to call him back,
Technical difficulties on the podcast.
After he comes in hot, rails on Hags, and then he leaves in the middle of the podcast.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know. I'm inviting him back right now. We're gonna leave this stuff in here.
He just sent me a Facebook video. Did I lose you boys?
Hey, Luke. Did we lose you?
Hey, no, must have lost him.
I sent him an invite. Yeah, Luke, what are your takes?
Yeah, Luke, anything on this matchup? Okay.
All right, good. Yeah, nothing from Luke. All right, so let's talk about Moneyball and the revamped Laces Out team. What do you think, Jared?
I mean, I had Mark winning, but Brian pulled out the W. I mean, Eddie Lacy still looks fat. I'm still not impressed by Eddie Lacy. Zeke, for going number 4 overall and having such a good O-line, he wasn't up to the hype. I mean, he didn't do bad. He got a touchdown and 50 yards. But they still threw. I don't know what the game plan was when they have your rookie quarterback throw 45 times.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so worried about Zeke here. I mean, I think he'll get in the groove of things. It's still the best offensive line in the league, and the Cowboys just got to find a way to open things up a little more for Zeke. But I think the real question with Luke's team is: are you a believer in Carlos Hyde now?
Oh, you mean Brian's team?
Yeah.
Carlos Hyde, I mean, he did the same thing as last year. He came out lights out the first week. But, I mean, with Chip Kelly's offense, I think they'll run him a lot. But you never know. I mean, the 49ers are so bad that, they still beat the Rams. But
yeah, and they have a great front seven, and Carlos Hyde just handled them. So did the 49ers, who we thought were going to be bad. So,
but they were 2 bad teams.
He can stay healthy. I think Brian's much improved. Any thoughts on the Mark versus Brian rivalry, Luke?
Oh, I like it. I'll tell you. From the start, I've been a believer in Brian's team. This Carlos Hyde bullshit, I love it. And I'll tell you, from the beginning, Mark's team, I hate it. The day he came in the draft and he wouldn't stop talking about Dante Moncrief, I knew I was never going to like that team. And anyone who opposed him, I'm a fan of.
Yeah, he got a little cute with the Christine Michael start. I mean,
Little
I don't
jank.
think he was going to get as many touches.
Luke, what is it about Dante Moncrief that just sets you off?
It's everything about him, you know, from the name to the way he plays to the team he plays for. Yeah, I just don't like it.
Just don't like
I
it
mean,
at
I hate
all.
it. I hate it
So
too,
how
but
tough was it? Because it's safe to say you were the only believer in Brian Barry. I mean, how tough was it to stick by his side after a 1-12 season? Was it tough?
It's tough, but you know, as a Packers fan, it's not that tough to believe in Eddie Lacy. And when a guy comes back and adds Ezekiel Elliott, it's not that much of a stretch to stick with him.
Eddie still looks fat, no? He still looks so fat, man.
Oh, he looks fat, but you know what?
yeah.
had, I think, the biggest guy in our league. He took the ship last season, which is proof for you. It doesn't matter how big you are. You can be a champion.
I guess it's true. I think he just
made
proved
me a
us wrong.
believer. Yeah. Well, I'm a believer in Eddie Lacy now. And, man, do you have any bold predictions? Like, how do you think Brian's going to end up? Give us a record.
Record for Brian.
Yeah,
You know,
regular season. There's 13 fantasy games.
I hate to say it. It's gonna be an average season. It's gonna be a 7-6 season.
Okay, but that's a big step forward.
Yeah, it's a big step forward, but I don't think it's a crazy step forward. Some of the performances we've seen I don't know. It's reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, when you add Ezekiel Elliott to your roster, it gets a pretty good bump, I think.
Yeah,
And then, so I mean, I guess next we have Luke versus PJ. I mean, that was a bloodbath, and we knew that was coming. I mean, he put up pretty good numbers for starting Rob Gronkowski when he wasn't going to play.
Yeah, I tell you, I was a little bit nervous about that. At first, I thought I might get the luck of the PJ coming at me. You know, Brian told me a little anecdote the other day when he was making that stud rankings and everything. He ran us through a random number generator to see where we would land with our studs to pick the matchups. The odds for PJ, I believe, were between 80 and 120. With the random number generator, he landed on 120.
Yeah, he got
so it's hard to go like that.
Yeah, it didn't look good. I mean, the luck of PJ, I don't know. Somehow he pulls out these wins normally, but it's hard to do when you don't start a tight end that's playing.
Yeah.
We gotta send PJ a wake-up call, huh, to fix his lineup here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just flat out unacceptable. It's he started Rob Gronkowski, who didn't play, and Charkandrick West, who I guess he's technically split with Spencer Ware, but
yeah, he might have not been on the news that Spencer Ware took over like the lead backup role, I guess. But yeah, it's tough when I mean I think we knew Gronk wasn't going to play for like 3 days before Sunday or something like that.
It's shameful. And this is coming from a guy who in another league intentionally did start Gronk because I didn't feel like picking up another tight end because I was playing another guy who was about as good as PJ.
I don't want to waste a roster spot on picking up somebody else.
It turned out okay. I won by like 20.
There you go. There you go. I mean, we can talk to another.
Doesn't have the luck PJ has.
We can talk another guy who has kind of bad roster management, and then we have Greg Philbin versus Glenn, and the dude started James Starks.
Yeah, that's a big move.
Like,
you
what
gotta
the
hate
fuck?
it.
Like, what are you doing?
Starks and Shane Vereen. It makes absolutely no sense. He leaves Gio Bernard and Danny Woodhead on the bench. And Danny Woodhead scored 20 points. You'd think he did it all last year, too. And Danny Woodhead was racking up points left and right. Had him on the bench the whole season. So you wonder when he's going to learn.
You know,
Danny Woodhead.
I'd have some serious questions. If it wasn't for PJ starting Charkandrick West and not having a full roster, Greg would be disappointing me the most out of this league.
So, so you just answered my next question. I was going to ask, who's the worst owner in the league? Is it Greg or is it PJ?
It's gotta be PJ. Hands down, it's PJ.
I think it's PJ too because Greg is
I mean,
active and making trades and making moves and trying to
and
get better.
Right.
I had to drop his kickers for him.
Right.
There's just head scratchers, man. It just seems like PJ is inactive, which is
He's like
it's just
Gronk.
unforgivable. Yeah.
He's not playing week 1, and we didn't know.
Partying
So
around Boston, he's probably partying with Gronk. Just not being a responsible owner at all. But yeah, so
But,
we're gonna give the edge to PJ there for worst owner in the league.
yeah. I mean, good things for Greg coming up with the RG3. Like, can't help but hurt himself. Gary Barnage, I think, gets a little bit of a boost with Josh McCown in, and then Keenan Allen going down really helps Danny Woodhead this year. More than I think it helps Melvin Gordon, because I think they're going to stack the box a little more. But I don't know. He started James Starks. Like, what the fuck were you thinking?
What the fuck?
One thing I want to get into right now, though, the Mark and Greg trade where Mark sends T.Y. Hilton to Greg for Derrick Henry, Michael Crabtree, and a 2017 first. Thoughts?
I think that's a close trade with Derrick Henry and Michael Crabtree to being a bad trade. You throw in a first, it's an awful trade.
Wow. Okay.
For Mark or for Greg?
For Greg, it's an awful trade, he said.
Greg.
For Greg. Okay. I thought it was
too
pretty
much
close.
to pay for Ty. So what's your thought behind that? You think Crabtree is just close enough to T.Y. Hilton in production that Derrick Henry makes up for that?
Yeah, I think, long term, this is a dynasty league.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry's the kind of guy I could see jumping into a starting role in a couple of years. And on its own, that's maybe a questionable trade for the future of a guy who's got a terrible team. He's got a need at running back. He's starting James Starks.
Yeah, and then Devontae Freeman looks like he's in a timeshare now, and it's not looking good. And Danny Woodhead's not getting any younger.
So my question now is, so you say Derrick Henry could be a starter in a couple years, which I agree with. I don't disagree with that, but Michael Crabtree's old enough to possibly be out of the league in a couple years, whereas T.Y. Hilton's going to keep playing well with Andrew Luck in that potent offense, right?
Yeah, I mean, he also gets to stack T.Y. with Andrew Luck, which T.Y. seems to be his favorite receiver, even though I think, like, Dante Moncrief, even though Luke hates him, fits the number one, like, outside wide receiver role for him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, T.Y., was his favorite target. I think he got like 26% of like the target share in that game against the Lions, which I think most of the Colts games are going to be a shootout like that because their defense is fucking terrible and injured. I mean, they were signing guys off the street. Like if you watch that game, it was like left and right. They lost another guy in the secondary. So I think there's going to be a lot of throwing and having Luck, and he still has 4 fucking quarterbacks. It doesn't make any sense. You have Luck, Andy Dalton. Why do you still need fucking Brock Osweiler and Jimmy Garoppolo?
It makes no sense.
Garoppolo's going to be the starting quarterback for like the Bears by like the end of the season, and you're never going to fucking start him over Andrew Luck or Andy Dalton.
Hey Greg, I saw Ryan Tannehill was on the waiver wire. Better go pick him.
You should pick him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bridgewater too. You can put him in your IR spot.
Was that Mark definitely? I think Greg helped himself out. He definitely got the best player in that trade, but I think Mark has to be the winner simply because he has Moncrief too, and Moncrief and Ty are they're going to be close enough in production where I don't think it's really gonna. I don't think it's really gonna hurt Mark to lose Ty that much. And you're not going to start Ty and Moncrief at the same time. So he kept the player that he liked in Moncrief, got rid of an asset that he wasn't really going to use, and
He got a high
I
first.
got a high 2017 first out of it. He got Derrick Henry, which was a mid 2016 first, and also Michael Crabtree, who's a quality player who he could probably start right away. So yeah, Mark's definitely the clear winner of that trade in my opinion too.
I agree with that. I mean, I think it was one of the closer trades that I've seen in this league, but I think I still like the Mark side just because, I mean, those 2017 firsts, I think it's going to be high, and I still like Crabtree. I wasn't a big Derrick Henry fan, but he looked pretty good in the preseason. But I guess we can move on to our power rankings. Speaking of Greg, at number 10, I have Greg. Somehow, even though PJ didn't start a tight end, he put up more points than him. I think they just both have bad roster management, but I think I have Greg in last.
Yeah, Greg's roster management takes the cake. I mean, he's got the players. He doesn't have to be last. I wanted to put PJ in last, and I couldn't because he just makes so many head scratching moves. I mean, he started James Starks. I can't get over that. So yeah, I got Greg in last place, 84 points.
I'll tell you, I really wanted to put Greg in last place after I looked back and saw what he did with James Starks there. But you simply cannot put somebody higher than last place that doesn't even have a full roster. You cross that with a guy starting Charkandrick West. We can make fun of James Starks, but this kid is starting Charkandrick West. Not to mention actually looking at their teams, PJ's team, beyond his few receivers, is objective garbage. He might pull through luck a few games, but there really aren't players that he can plug in and play, even if he got his shit together. At least Greg's just kind of doing it wrong. And there's some pieces there.
I know. I mean, I like Greg's roster a lot better, but for some reason his roster management is worse. And maybe that's because PJ can only start a few players, and that's how he wins, and because he can't fuck it up because there's only a few guys he can play. Where Greg maybe in his head overthinks things, but if he just, started the guy who's projected more points, he would do 20 times better than he does.
I think if Greg, if Greg's listening to the podcast, he'll be better in a few weeks. PJ,
I hope so.
PJ, I think he's born with it. I don't think you can fix that. He's also born with luck. He's born with luck, and I'll give him that, As much as I'm ripping on PJ's team, I'll tell you, I say he finishes outside the bottom three.
Yeah, probably. Somehow. I don't know. He'll make some, waiver wire pickup that nobody saw or expected to do anything, and then he'll start that guy, and he'll get, 40 points. And he'll edge out these couple wins. Maybe. I mean, it's crazy. Just like last year. I didn't think he was going to do anything, and he started off number one in the league for, half the season.
Yeah, but without that start this year, it's going to be tough, man. He's already started in a hole, and I don't know. I hope Greg takes this as a wake-up call. I think Luke's absolutely right. Greg should listen to the podcast, make the roster moves, and start the right guys. Because I agree, Greg's roster is more talented than PJ, and PJ's got luck. It's
the manager.
It's weird, man.
I mean, I liked his trade. I think it was good for Greg to get. I mean, his wide receivers were one of his biggest weaknesses, and now it looks like it's his running back too. But I mean, I'm sorry, Greg. I don't want to rip your team apart, but it's. I mean, I feel bad.
He's been doing this since 2016, so
I've been doing this since the first podcast where I think I put him in last.
The TY trade was a step. We'll give it a step. So I got PJ at 8. Or PJ at 9, I should say. Clear second worst, even maybe the worst. And then
They're both
Mark,
close.
I got Mark at number 8. Any discrepancies there?
Mark at 8.
I'll tell you, I had Mark at 7.
Ooh.
Down at 8. I'm putting the one and the only Jerry Jones, Ryan Haggerty.
At 7, wow.
Even
Down
after he
goes
edged out a
Hines.
win.
You know, you can call that a win, but that's like watching the 49ers versus the Rams or something like that. It was
It
just
was a bad
garbage
matchup.
football. What does it
Yeah,
mean? You know, what you got to do, if you break it down, you actually look at his team. Who's on the team for Hags? You know, it's a question you got to ask yourself. I see the studs, right? You know, he's got that Brandon Marshall, Larry Fitzgerald, Adrian Peterson thing going on. But if you get past those two guys, and then you go to a little bit deeper, you hit Sterling Shepard. Okay, people like him, whatever. But you know, where's the other wide receivers on his team? There's not a single wide receiver this guy can start on his bench. Anybody gets hurt, goes out on a bye, it's going to be an empty position.
Yeah, he doesn't have a ton of depth. He's pretty old, and I think he's got maybe a year or two to try and make a move for, the championship. Because other than that, like Adrian Peterson's got a couple more years maybe. Brandon Marshall, Larry Fitz, like there's all talk of all those guys leaving. Even Greg Olson's not young. I mean, he's got a couple years maybe left in his window, maybe a year. Maybe that's it. I mean, maybe he's got to make a couple moves to solidify his team just to try and get a win while he can, or just maybe as a fire sale and start selling off all his pieces while he can and start a rebuild.
I'll tell you, I don't like what I see. You know, I think if you want to make an argument for Hag's team, you're going to have to start talking crap about Isaiah Crowell and TJ Yeldon. And, you know, they had good performances week 1, and I like Yeldon more than I like Crowell, but I think it's a weak case. And I like Mark a little better. As much as I hate this Dante Moncrief stuff in principle, I gave Mark the edge.
Yeah, TJ Yeldon had like 1.8 yards a carry or something like that. It was fucking miserable. Isaiah Crowell, he looked okay, and with Hugh Jackson, he's what made Jeremy Hill a thing, and they're kind of the same build. But I don't know. He doesn't have a ton of depth. He's got the studs. It's just, can they stay healthy? They're all pretty damn old. Aaron Rodgers can carry him a little bit, but he's got a small window here before he's got to do something.
Anyways, let's. So you guys got Mark at 8. Let's move on to your 7.
So 7 I had Brian.
Oh, interesting.
So the rivalry could be pretty close.
I'm coming in. I'm bumping Hags a little bit lower than you guys. Sounds like.
Yeah, a little bit.
I got Hags a little further up. Until the starters go down, I still think it's a pretty fearsome starting unit. I didn't take the bench into consideration as much because I agree with all your points about the bench being thin, which it is. There's a lot of ways his team could go wrong, but I think if everything goes right for his team, it's as scary as anybody's. It was this way last year as well. It just didn't, come together for him. But that's why I have him a little higher. I got Brian at 7 as well. I'm really excited for the Mark Brian rivalry. I think it's going to be a really intense one.
So I had Mark at 7, and then I had Brian. One up on him over at 6.
At 6?
Yeah, so I had those two, paired pretty close together. I'm giving the edge to Brian over Mark, which it sounds like you guys are as well.
Yeah.
When I look at Mark's team, what I see is, I see a lot of good wide receivers he's built up, but no cleared standout. And I see some, in my opinion, pretty weak backs on this team. He's kind of riding on the hype train of Melvin Gordon and Jeremy Langford. And if you take some of the touchdowns out of Melvin Gordon's game and like random production for Jeremy Langford, I'm not sure that these guys really have the skill to propel this team to the next level. Whereas you're looking at a team with Brian, where his backs, we've got, Eddie Lacy and Ezekiel Elliott, and a similar wide receiver situation. Maybe his wide receivers aren't up to par on the same level as Mark, but if you pick the best one out of them based on matchup week to week, I think he puts in just as good a team, if not better. And if you're factoring in a healthy Carlos Hyde, putting in production, even 75% of what he did this past week, I've got Brian ahead of Mark in the rivalry and Brian ahead of Mark in the power rankings.
I think we both have the same thing. I mean, I agree with you. Mark's got a young team with a lot of potential, but he doesn't have the studs. He doesn't have the running backs that stick out. I mean, they're all pretty young. Melvin Gordon's pretty young. Langford's young. But, I mean, they're not – I mean, I don't think Chicago really believes in Jeremy Langford that much. They went out and tried to get C.J. Anderson. I mean, it's the same thing with Brian when he had what's his name? Jay Ajayi. They tried to get C.J. Anderson there too, and he didn't even dress for the game. But, I mean, he still got Eddie Lacy, Ezekiel Elliott, Carlos Hyde to start over those. So I edged out Brian over Mark as well. But at 6, I had myself because I put up a poor showing and I lost to Hags. And that really upset me. So I had to bump myself down. I couldn't put myself over Hags. Even though I think my team's definitely better in the long run, he beat me this week when I just collapsed.
5. So I'm one ahead of you guys in my list.
Did we lose you? Oh, he's
No,
back.
I think he's still there. He just his voice is breaking up a little bit. So I had myself at 6. I couldn't edge out the win. I thought I had it, and then Larry Fitz put up a huge game, and Dez dropped a touchdown. So I moved myself down to 6. How about you, Glenn? What do you have?
I had Brian at 6, so I've already talked about him. So I have Greg at 10, PJ 9, Mark 7, Brian 6, and I have Luke at 5.
Okay.
So I got Luke at 5. I like Luke's team. I think he's putting it together. But I think he's right in the middle, man. He's there. He's on the cusp of breaking out. But I couldn't bring myself to put him over you quite yet or Hags.
Okay. So that was your 6 or your 5?
That was my 5.
Was your 5? Okay. So I guess I got 5. I had Hags just because he beat me, so I had to bump him up. How about you? You had me at 5, right, Luke? Is Luke even here?
I think Luke's frozen.
I think he had me at 5, so I'll go to my 5. I had Hags. So then at 4 I had Luke, which sucks. He's like frozen and gone or something like that. Because can we hang up on him and call him back? Oh, he's gone now. Read that.
Oh, no.
Call him again. What the fuck?
He probably missed the whole deal where I put him at 5, but that's all right. I got mixed up at the spot we're on because I already talked about Brian. I didn't think we were on 6, so I guess I messed that up.
You had Hags at 6?
No, I had Brian at 6.
You had Brian at 6. Who the fuck did you have? 7, 8, 9. So 8, 9, 10, 9
Greg,
was
PJ, Mark,
Brian. So no, that doesn't make any sense.
Greg at 10, PJ at 9, Mark at 8, Brian at 7. Oh shit!
You just fucking idiot.
Wow. All right.
So we're gonna call Luke back.
I thought I did. Yeah. I did.
Okay. So who do you have at 6?
Oh, he's back in it.
Yeah. So who is your 6? Because I don't think we ever went over that.
I mean, it's Luke.
I gotta apologize for my disgraceful internet, boys.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. I can't figure it out, but I'll tell you, I think it's karma hitting me. I went off on a whim, started talking some big shit about Hag's week 1 podcast performance, put him down in the power rankings. I think he's over here with a Wi-Fi disruptor or something, you know?
Yeah, he's getting after you, man. Is your video able to come back on?
Oh yeah, I can bring it back on. I wasn't risking it right away.
It'd be a disgrace for us not to see that mustache, man.
There we go. There we
Yeah,
go. It's
that's
back.
what I'm talking about. All right, man. So we
All
didn't
right,
we
all
didn't, we
right.
didn't get too far ahead of ourselves here. We were just talking about our number 6 teams. Jared had himself. I had you. And who do you got at number
Oh,
6?
Oh,
number
ooh.
6. So I had, in order from the bottom, I had PJ, Greg, Hags, Mark, and Brian, which put Brian at my number 6.
Brian at 6. Okay. So then we went through 5, and I think Luke had me at 5, and I had Hags because he beat me. And then Glenn, who did you have at 5?
I had you at 5, Jared.
All right. So we move on to 4. I had Luke. I mean, I like his team. Antonio Brown's a stud. Jordan Reed, I think he is probably the tight end too. I mean, after last season, he kind of had an off game, but his wide receiver too is where I get a little iffy. I mean, I think Kevin White, he started him last week. I think he's going to need a couple years to develop. I mean, I think he's pretty raw. And you can see like the interception that was completely his fault because he ran the wrong route. And Cutler, like when they're running to the sidelines, pointing like you should have been here, and like calling him out. I think he's gonna need a couple years to develop. I like him as a player. But other than that, I mean, I guess just wide receiver 2 is like Deshaun Jackson or Mohamed Sanu, or I think that hurts him a little bit. But I still had him at 4. Put up big numbers, had a good week.
Yeah, I've got a little more confidence in myself at this WR2 position. I know we got a lot of hate coming my way, but I'll tell you, I'm watching that Redskins game, and people are calling that a disappointment from Jordan Reed or maybe Deshaun Jackson. And you know what I'm saying? It's a disappointment from Kirk Cousins. Deshaun Jackson and Jordan Reed, those guys are out there looking great. They're making moves. They're pulling yards after the catch on balls down at their ankles. I'll concede the point about Kevin White. You know, I'm a big Kevin White fan, as a diehard West Virginia partial native.
Yeah.
You know, I think I could have maybe made a better decision on that. Definitely Mohamed Sanu, weak option, but I've got a little bit more faith in Michael Floyd than maybe some other people do. But I'll tell you, Deshaun Jackson in my mind is legitimate WR2, although I can see the skepticism.
He's a little boomer bust, you know. It's like Glenn said, like almost every week last year. It was he's gonna win you some weeks, he's gonna lose you some weeks. If he gets a couple of big long catches for touchdowns and stuff like that, he can put up some serious numbers. But Kirk Cousins didn't have a great, week. I mean, he had a pretty bad game. I don't know. He was throwing a lot of low balls, and that game was kind of hard to watch on the Redskins side.
Yeah, I like your team, Luke. I think with good management, like you said, Michael Floyd, I think playing Michael Floyd is going to be a big factor for you this year. And I like the depth at all positions, although I do think as good of a prospect Kevin White is, I think he'll need some time, just like Jared said. But you've got to be a little concerned about Matt Ryan, right? I know I'm concerned about Matt Ryan, and I don't know. I just have this feeling, and I could be wrong. I hope you prove me wrong. But I think your team had a nice up week this week, and I'm not sure your luck is going to continue. Like, I think you're in for a tough week this time around.
Yeah, but he's got Eli. Eli's a pretty solid backup, and I guess he's got Paxton Lynch to develop for a little while. I mean, Travier Simeon didn't look bad. He didn't look good. He he did better than I expected, but he wasn't, like, blowing me out of the water.
Looks like you got a fan.
I'll tell you, to the point about Matt Ryan, I'm self-admitted a fan of Matt Ryan. One of the few quarterbacks in the league I like to actually see out there throwing the ball. You know, I think it's a concern when his number 2 wide receiver is Mohamed Sanu, but I guess if that keeps working out, then that's good for me in both worlds. So
yeah,
I'm gonna live and die by Mohamed Sanu.
Yeah,
That's a
you
little
can
bit
stack
scary.
them both.
But I got faith in Eli Manning as a backup. I really have no shame starting a guy who's throwing the ball to Odell Beckham Jr., Victor Cruz, and then, as much as I really
Sterling
not hyped on Sterling Shepard as much as everyone else is, I think Sterling Shepard is good enough as a third wide receiver in that offense.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely have the depth to make up for to have some options to play your matchups right week to week. So I like that team. I think we're on the number 4. Is that right, or number 3?
I had Luke as 4.
We're at
And
number
that
4.
started that conversation.
So my number 4, I will say, was actually Griffin. You'll see I actually put myself ahead of Griffin. Maybe a controversial opinion, but I'm a little bit skeptical of the kind of mid ranks of Griffin's team. I can see a lot of boom coming out of some of his guys. He's got a lot of high point potential, but when you kind of dig into it, you realize that he's actually looking for guys like Amir Abdullah to really play as week in and week out starters, which is something that I'm really not that thrilled about. So his core players really aren't where you want them to be. And you compare that to somebody like Jordan Reed in the lineup, I'm not exactly thrilled with what Griffin does at tight end. Overall,
No, you're not
Griffin
a
is my
fan?
4.
You're not a Kelsey fan?
I'm not a Kelsey fan. Not at all.
I like Kelsey. I don't think he's going to ever have a huge game, really, because the way Andy Reid uses him, but I like his talent a lot, and I think he has a lot of potential. Once in a while, he puts up huge games where he gets a few TDs, but I think you can't go wrong with that as your tight end 1. I mean, I'm sitting over here with Antonio Gates and Ladarius Green and Clive Walford, and I kind of hate my life at tight end, but I like Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce is a legitimate tight end to start, but in trying to differentiate the two positions for me, I was giving myself the edge over Griffin on that basis because if you compound that with the middle and ground that I don't really like that much, the only reason I would give the edge to Griffin is if you get really high on some of these players on his bench. Like, say Josh Gordon comes back, goes nuts, and Will Fuller really does turn into a dominant wide receiver or something.
Yeah, I had issues with Will Fuller coming out with the amount of drops he had, and he still had a big drop in that game with the Texans, but he put up some good numbers. I mean, running back, he's got Mark Ingram, and then he can mix in Arian Foster, Frank Gore, D'Angelo Williams while he has him. Amir Abdullah looked good, but him and Theo Riddick have kind of a timeshare, and they just beat up on a shitty Colts defense.
I got 25 points out of Theo Riddick, and I didn't even mention the guy in reference to my team. I think that's one thing that concerns me about Griffin's team. When you talk about his team, you ask him about his team. Amir Abdullah is part of the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's definitely some concerns with Griffin's team. It's doing well now, but he's going to lose D'Angelo Williams in a couple games here, and that's going to hurt him big time. But so yeah, you bring up some great points. I can't argue with Griffin at number 4, but I had Hags at number 4, and Griffin one spot ahead of him to get into the number 3s. So I'm pretty close with you guys on Griffin as well.
All right, so we're moving on to number 3s.
Yeah.
You had Griffin at 3.
I had Griffin for all the reasons you guys stated. I just put him one spot higher. Same area though.
So for 3, I put Jeremy.
Oh.
I brought him down because he took a loss to Griffin, and I couldn't put Griffin above him because he beat him. I mean, Jeremy's team's unreal, and I hate saying it because we say it too damn much. He might have got a little cute with Jesse James as tight end. It hurts him for a little bit till Tyler Eifert's back. But, I mean, Julio had a little off game. DeAndre Hopkins, maybe you have to worry about now that the Texans have other weapons to throw to. He's not going to get fed as much. I don't really know, but his team's unreal. I mean, Allen Robinson played Green Bay, and I guess they have a pretty good defense. But, I mean, I probably would have started Amari Cooper versus the Saints because their defense is trash, but that's just me. But You know, he had a tough loss. Todd Gurley should have won it for him, but he got stuffed. I put him at 3. I couldn't put him above Griffin after Griffin just got the win. So
The only reason I didn't have Griffin ahead of Jeremy, even though you'd think Griffin should deserve it, but he's gonna lose D'Angelo Williams, and I just see
yeah, but
Griffin's team. I just see Griffin's team going down, and Jeremy's can only go up still. So I had Jeremy.
I know,
ahead
but
of
this is
Griffin.
power ranking. Like for this week, I couldn't do it because he just lost. I don't know. I mean, yes, obviously Jeremy would be probably my number 1 team in the league because I mean he's got depth pretty much everywhere, I guess, for except for tight end.
Let's see.
You know, I had to drop him down. I put him at 3 because he lost.
Who do you got, Luke, at number 3?
I was generous and belligerent and had a load of confidence in this mustache, and I went ahead and threw myself at 3 because I didn't like Griffin's team, as for the reasons I said, and I told you guys already why I hate Hag's team, and that's why I got Hags all the way down at 8. If you factor both those things in, then I landed up there. Maybe undeservedly a 3, but in the context of the other guys we got mucking around in this league, that's how I ended up.
I can't hate on that. The middle group is so I mean it's so close between everybody. You definitely have the depth and the starters to get you to number 3, so I can't argue with that. And you placed number 3 in the league last week, so I wouldn't say undeservedly so. I think you're very deserving of the 3 spot. Number 2, Jared, who do you got? Let's kick it off.
I put Griffin just because he beat Jeremy. And he's got Odell Beckham. Even though Odell didn't have a great game, D'Angelo put up big numbers. I think he started him. I really like Jameis Winston. His wide receivers. I mean, Marvin Jones, he did all right. You know, I think he can do pretty good with on the Lions. I like Travis Kelce. I don't think he has like a ton of studs. He has a lot of guys he could play in that can do pretty well. John Brown, I like. Josh Dotson, I like. Devin Funchess, I liked him last year, but he was pedestrian during the game. But I don't know. I liked his starters. He put up big numbers this week. He beat Jeremy. I had to put him at 2.
I'm gonna just jump in and take issue with 2 of the things that were mentioned there. I don't think we can give this guy credit for either Josh Dotson or John Brown. Josh Dotson, definitely no, because, you know, we're telling me that Deshaun Jackson is not a legitimate wide receiver, but at the same time, Pierre Garçon is playing behind Deshaun Jackson. Below him, we have Jamison Crowder, also Jordan Reed on that team, and Chris Thompson out of the backfield. And did Josh Dotson even play?
He's got an Achilles injury.
Yeah, like I don't think he's gonna break back into this team and do anything useful.
He was a first round wide receiver with an Achilles injury. You're not gonna start him.
It doesn't. But we're talking about the power rankings. How does this guy figure into the power rankings?
I liked his depth, and I was high on him before. I had him at 4 before. He beat Jeremy. I moved him up to 2.
And John Brown is the depth we're talking about?
Oh yeah, I like John Brown.
Oh, you know I like John Brown.
John Brown.
I'd like to have John Brown on my team on the bench for the next 3 years and see how he pans out. Would I like to have Odell Beckham go off on a bye week and have to put John Brown in the game? No.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about putting John Brown in the game.
I wouldn't either. He's kind of a boomer bust guy. He's almost like a younger, I guess, Deshaun Jackson, where he goes and he takes the top off the defense and he goes and gets long touchdowns. But I think last year he was pretty damn good.
On the same token, you know, we're getting that kind of production out of a guy like Michael Floyd or something, and it's hard to really tout those as the reason that a guy is the number 2 in the power rankings.
He beat the guy who had number 1 last week.
He beat the guy that had number 1 last week. I'll tell you, I don't care if Jeremy lost. I've got Glenn at 2 in my rankings, and I might catch a little flack for this, but I'll tell you what solidified it for me. As much as I like Glenn's team right now, I'm going to say that about 90 points of 120-point performance, a.k.a. 75%, came from 3 players. And on those 3 players, we're looking at 2 of those players taking giant touchdown passes, which, it's something that's great to have on your team as a boom. But if you want to look in and week out, is Brandon Cooks going to catch 98-yard touchdown passes? No. Will A.J. Green maybe continue to catch a whole bunch of these 50, 40-yard long balls? Yes. Will they all be touchdowns? No. So for me, there's a lot of hype coming off that team, and when you look at C.J. Anderson, I really like the floor on him. I don't know if week in and week out he's really this stud wide receiver. Stud running back. He's a great fantasy player I'd love to have on my team, but long-term, skill-wise, I'm not really sure it's a C.J. Anderson thing so much as a Broncos thing. And if you look at what Glenn's doing at tight end with Kobe Fleener, guy went out on the waiver wire and dropped a pretty penny to pick up a guy who put in a 1-point performance last week on a team that was hucking the ball for like 400 yards. I've got a question about that, and for that reason, I've got to leave Glenn at number 2. But for the performance he put in, he is at number 2.
Yeah, C.J. Anderson, I think he can do.
Did we lose you?
Jared?
I think we just lost Jared.
Oh, man.
Thomas Value or Emmanuel Sanders. It's just I think he can get fed. A.J. Green's a monster. He could be he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver this year. Brandon Cooks is definitely he's fast. He doesn't fit the typical wide receiver 1 style of an offense, but he's just takes the top off of a defense from Drew Brees who loves to throw the ball. He could have some high-scoring games this week. Kobe Fleener, yeah, he's not looking good. Bad things came out with him from camp, that he wasn't running the right routes, that he wasn't fitting in with the coaching scheme, which is hard to believe because Drew Brees always has a top 10 tight end because he loves to throw to the tight end, but for some reason it wasn't working with Kobe Fleener. But I love Lamar Miller this year from that game. He didn't get the touchdowns I thought he was going to, but they ran him a lot. I think they're going to feed him the ball this year. Russell Wilson got hurt, kind of hurt him a little bit this week. Demaryius got hurt, and I don't know what's up with the hip, and he didn't put up great numbers, but it's still Demaryius Thomas. I had Glenn as number 1, but, tight ends, Austin Jenkins had a nice touchdown grab, but it's against his defense, which has nothing to boast about.
I think, there's definitely a very, very, very solid argument for Glenn as the number 1, especially if you take into fact that DeMarco Murray is looking great in Tennessee and could put in best year since he's been on the Cowboys and could be a legitimate running back this year, more than a legitimate running back.
Yeah.
But in the end, I slipped number 1 to Jeremy because the sheer stud value on that team, it's face melting. He really got carried this week by the Vikings defense, and I wanted to bring him down. I wanted to bring him down so bad. But I'm sitting there on my couch rooting for my Packers, watching Allen Robinson and watching the way Blake Bortles looked at him. And I'll tell you, I went to Brian and Amanda's wedding this weekend. Blake Bortles was looking at Allen Robinson the way Brian was looking at Amanda. That's the guy he wanted by his side for the rest of his life. Let me tell you, he favors Allen Robinson so much so that I don't even know who this Allen Hurns guy is, and I just cannot see Allen Robinson going another week without picking up his value.
Oh yeah. I really like Allen Robinson. I think he's going as in a dynasty league. He's going as a top 5 pick right now. He had an incredible year last year. Blake Bortles doesn't shy away from just throwing the ball deep. I really like Allen Robinson. I really like Julio Jones. He's had some ankle injury. His team's unreal.
And speaking of Allen Robinson again, I don't want to beat this horse too much, but I'm watching the Steelers game again too, and the way Blake Bortles is looking at Allen Robinson, it reminds me a lot of Big Ben with Antonio Brown. Granted, Antonio Brown, much better player. Ben Roethlisberger, much better quarterback. Blake Bortles is basically effectively garbage. He will just throw the ball at him and hope he gets touchdowns. And Allen Robinson can bring it in and make it happen.
He's got a little Brett Favre in him.
Yeah, he's got a little Brett Favre in him. And,
He's got some good long arm punts.
Yeah. As a Packers fan, I can appreciate that. I got a love for Brett Favre, but still a little hate for Blake Bortles. The differentiating thing that really just kicked it for me with Jeremy versus Glenn in the power rankings is, they both struggled at tight end, but I really feel Jesse James is a much more solid hit to kind of run over to Tyler Eifert coming back, whereas Glenn doesn't really have that guy coming in. He's really riding this Austin Seferian-Jenkins train. And if we're going to talk about Brandon Cooks and how he's on the rise and how his week-to-week value is strong, then we have to recognize this Willie Snead character. If Brandon Cooks doesn't really stand out as a true number one receiver, and Kobe Fleener's playing like garbage, it leaves room for a guy like Willie Snead to just kind of come and sneak in. And, we haven't even mentioned guys like Amari Cooper in this who are just hanging out on the bench not doing anything.
Oh, yeah, Jeremy's got so much depth. His team is sweet, but he's never going to start Willie Snead. I don't think he takes that much value off Brandon Cooks because, like I said before, he's like the outside, take the top off, and he gets those long touchdowns almost every game.
Well, so here's the twist, though. What you guys are forgetting is that while he may not be the supreme leader commissioner of our league, I still think he's full of collusion. I still think he's a full-on trade rapist, and I wouldn't be surprised to see one of you motherfuckers sitting around with Willie Snead, minus your first-round pick, and minus your RB1.
For Willie Snead?
Watch out. Not necessarily you two, but I could definitely see that happening to Mark or Hags if they're not careful.
Yeah, be like, oh, damn, Willie Snead's looking damn good.
I'll tell you, anyone who loves Dante Moncrief as much as Mark does is eyeing Willie Snead pretty hard right now.
Sign me up. Have all my first-round picks. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, Jeremy has so much trade power right now. I mean, you said it yourself, and I'm going to end it on that. Jeremy's team is face-melting, which makes it all the more satisfied that Griffin beat him this week, and I hope I don't know who's playing them next week, but I hope they get to him too. Let's get into our real quickly. We'll make this segment quick because we've gone over.
Pick'ems.
We're going to talk about the week 2 pick'ems. So let's get right into it with Supreme Leader Goodell versus Mark. Jeremy versus Mark. Quickly, Jared, who do you have?
Jeremy.
Luke.
Jeremy massacres him. He's got great matchups going on for David Johnson, Julio Jones, Newton, Tampa Bay, Oak, San Francisco. Can't see Mark pulling this one out unless Melvin Gordon puts up 5 touchdowns.
No, there's no way Jeremy's team duds out 2 weeks in a row. It's going to be an absolute massacre, and we're going to have to look for a casket for Mark here pretty soon. Super Warms, Griffin versus Banana Boat Brock, Jared. Let's start off with you, Luke. Who do you got in that matchup?
I've got Griffin. Griffin's going into a game between the Saints and the Giants, and we all know how that turned out last year. I don't think it's going to be much different this year. I could see 75 to 100 points coming out of Breeze, Ingram, and Odell. What the hell am I saying? I think that really boosts Griffin over Jared. Don't really like how Jared's looking with this janky Gates thing and the Keenan Allen injury, and with that big game going, I'm going to give this one to Griffin.
Yeah, I gotta go with Griffin as well. It pains me to say that. This could have been the premier matchup on the slate for this week before the Keenan Allen injury, and that just really hurts Jared. So I gotta go with Griffin. Jared, who do you got?
Griffin's gonna fucking bury me, and I have fucking a shit lineup for the next couple weeks. I play Griffin, then I play fucking Jeremy, and then I play Glenn, and then I play Luke. I'm going to start out like 0-5 because my team is fucking falling apart right now. Guys can't catch a ball. I mean, Jordy's shaking the rust off. Keenan Allen just fucking tore his ACL. Gates, maybe he picks it back up. He needs to get his touchdowns. And then, I mean, maybe we get to start Spencer Ware this week. Thomas Rawls might get the start, but Griffin's going to fucking murder me.
We all agree. All right. Luke versus Greg. I'll start out with myself. It's Luke easy.
Do we even have to ask this one?
Yeah, so Greg's starting Vereen and Starks, and I'm going to shit on him on the air about this, and I bet that he doesn't even see the podcast and have the stupid fucking sense to change that before we play the matchup.
I mean, I can even tell him who to start and he'll lose.
I'd still take you, even if he got his shit together. I like Luke this week.
Which is why I'm calling him out, because I don't care if he takes him out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, even if he went and switched out his players and started Woodhead and started, I don't even know. I mean,
Gio?
Devontae Freeman's looked kind of shitty. Start Gio. I mean, he just traded a second-round pick for Andre Ellington. You murdered him in that trade, Glenn. It's just sad. I mean, you could tell him who to start, and I don't think he even come close.
Yeah, me neither. So it's easily Luke. Myself, Glenn, Dynasty GM versus Hags, the North remembers. Who do you got, Luke?
I've got Glenn. For the reason you guys were arguing in the power rankings, week to week I've got worries about going up against Hags and arguing against him. But that triple threat stud wide receiver lineup coming in, I think Demaryius comes in, actually puts in a performance, and I really don't see Hags pulling this one out with Sterling Shepard as the face-up on that and Victor Cruz back in form. Maybe something crazy happens with Adrian Peterson, but I think that gets balanced out with Ryan Matthews honestly being pretty low ceiling.
Yeah, I got Glenn too. I mean, I need Hags to lose because he beat me, but it's tough. It's tough. Your lineup, Glenn, is pretty stellar compared to Hags. I mean, they're oldies and goodies. Stack the box against AP because I even think Bradford's starting. They're still going to stack the box against AP. It's a tough matchup for Ryan. I guess next we got Brian versus PJ, which I guess could be game of the week because you got Lucky Peach and Brian. I got Brian this week.
Yeah, this is my matchup of the week too, just because I think it's going to be close, and I absolutely hated myself for this. But when I looked at the matchups, I actually have PJ over Brian. I can't believe I'm even saying that because the man started Charkandrick West, but I just think with Gronk coming back and Andrew Luck, PJ actually has the matchups to score some points, whereas I think Brian's in for another tough week, or for a tough week versus last week when he actually played really well. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm gonna take PJ. I don't know what it is. I think the luck's gonna shine through this week.
I thought you just said Andrew Luck, and I was like, what are you talking about, Andrew Luck?
Well, Andrew Luck's gonna shine through too.
Yeah, as much as I firsthand have witnessed the luck, I'm still taking Brian. PJ's still starting Charkandrick West. And, for me, that's tempting the fates. There's only so far you can push your luck, and I think starting Charkandrick West, you're pushing it over the edge.
Yeah, that was a tough start. I don't know if you looked at his roster before Sunday, but he needs to.
Shout out to Brian for getting married this week, though. This one's for you, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Apparently,
and thank you for Derek Carr. He's dope.
Yeah, thanks for dropping Derek Carr. All right, hey Luke. So we got a quick segment before we wrap this thing up here. We just want to talk about, because you seem like such a level-headed guy, we want to talk about some of the trade offers that you've been sending out to people around the league. And I want to start off with your history. It started last year after Jamal Charles tore his ACL, you sent out a few trade offers. Is that right?
I've been known to send out trade offers.
Okay. I got Jamal Charles with a torn ACL for AJ Green right after Jamal Charles went down last year. Can you explain that one?
You know, I got to feel out the league. I seen the things that Jeremy was doing at the beginning of the season. I've seen how dumb some of the people were in the trades. And, you know, as much as I believe you guys are smarter than that, I got to prove you out. You know, I'm gonna call Jared out. A week ago, I got an offer from him, straight up Keenan Allen for Antonio Brown.
Keenan Allen and a first-round pick.
Oh, I didn't see that.
That was an opener. That was like the opening deal, which I didn't think was that bad for a first step. And I knew you were gonna fucking bring this up.
I didn't see a first-round pick associated with that. I thought that was a straight-up offer.
No, one straight up. That'd be a little sad.
And ever since then, I've been shooting things out. I think I offered somebody Pierre Garçon for a real wide receiver or something like that. I
remember when.
I know you shot me. I know you shot me Theo Reddick for C.J. Anderson last week. I'm not buying that, man.
Hey.
But I hear you. You gotta feel out the league, and I do want to say this as funny as it is sometimes seeing a trade offer theoretic for C.J. Anderson, at least I'm getting the offer, and I'd rather have that than nothing. And like you said, Mohamed Sanu in a first for Jordy Nelson, man. I mean, no, everybody would have laughed at that too, and that got accepted. So you just never know. You got to send out the offer. So I highly agree.
My favorite one was when Matt Forte went down last year, and he sent me Jordy and Dez for Matt Forte.
Hey.
Swinging a big trade dick right there. Wow.
But that was pretty good. But, like I said, I'd rather have trade offers flying around than none. So it's nice to see somebody active. At least we got like the TY trade going, and hopefully people put a little thought into it before they go and trade with Jeremy.
Well, I'm building up a big trade this year. I'm looking to get Charkandrick West off PJ, and I'm gonna flip him for David Johnson and Todd Gurley in a third rounder.
That's a big trade, man. That would change your whole season. I'd probably have to vote you to first after that trade. Can't wait for you to pull this off.
But other than that, unless you guys got anything else, I think that's a wrap for the Week 2 podcast.
Absolutely. All right. Great Week 2 podcast. We're back at it again on Wednesdays. Also, in the Facebook polls, we're going to be sending out matchups so everybody can vote. We're keeping track of those. We'll announce the standings next week on the pod, and you're gonna have some serious bragging rights if you're winning all the pick'ems at the end of the year. So
yeah, except for Glenn, you didn't vote. So
yeah,
you're gonna take a big L for last week. Same with PJ. You guys got to vote.
I'm just trying to give people a fair head start. I'm back in it now.
So far, it's pretty even. Everyone's either got 3 or 2 correct picks, so it's not looking too exciting so far. But vote in the polls, and we'll see who wins, and you get bragging rights. I don't know. I'm not putting up any prize.
maybe some candy.
Maybe I'll give you my 3rd round pick.
Yeah. All right, boys.
All right. Talk to you later.